For the third year and counting, Richard Skipper has been celebrating the artists you love. Richard Skipper is all about celebrating life, art, and his guest body of work. Please join us while he showcases these diverse and talented individuals. Here's Richard Skipper.
Happy Thursday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. Who or what are you celebrating today? As you all know, I believe that every day is to be celebrated if we take the time to do so. And all this month, I am celebrating one of my favorite subjects, and that's cabaret. I've been a part of cabaret for 35 years. And she's probably going to pass out in the wings when I say this, but my first director in cabaret is here today. And I'm so excited because two of our guests today are going to be joining me on different nights, of course, for Capital Cabaret in Washington, D.C. at Crazy Aunt Helen's. And so we're going to be talking about the series. I have two of the other artists that are going to be joining us during the series, and the man who is the impresario who is behind all of this. I'm very excited because for the first time in 4 years, I'm getting back to performing in front of a live audience. This has been fun, but I've missed those faces and seeing everyone. And thank God that we've reached a point where my audience, I hope, will not be wearing masks. So I'll be able to see those eyes, those mouths, those smiling faces. Well, I am kicking off the series, but the very next night, one of my favorite people in all of cabaret is going to be appearing as well. And that is Anna Bergman.
Hi.
Hello, Anna. How are you?
Hi, sweetheart. I'm well. Thank you.
And you're not on jury duty.
I'm not. I got off.
I have been dreading. It's been so long since I've done it that I've been dreading that they're going to call me any minute. So thank God that you were able to be here today. Well, I have to begin. You recently, you and our other guest, Lena Katrakas, as well, both left New York. I mean, not completely, but you have picked up your roots. You've gone somewhere else. And I think that's the theme of your upcoming show.
Yeah, it is. Travel and living around the world. So yeah, my husband and I moved 3 years ago, actually last week, to a beautiful place. We're just blissfully happy here. We're in Northern Virginia. We're in Alexandria, Virginia, just literally right across the river from Washington, D.C. and Maryland. So it's heaven. We love it. We just really, we're happy here.
And how did you get on the radar of Capital Cabaret?
Interesting. Okay, so my musical director in this area is the exceedingly gifted Howard Breitbart. And when we did one of my performances, it actually in my home, it was a private salon here in our house. Howard suggested that I invite Parker Nolan. And I did. I invited Parker and his husband, and I was so delighted to meet them both. And and Parker asked me if I would be interested in joining this fantastic inaugural Capital Cabaret Festival. So here we are.
It's exciting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Have you been to Crazy Aunt Helen's?
I haven't yet. I'm so excited though to go and see it. Yeah, no, I haven't been yet.
So Anna, I want to talk a little bit about your work prior to this. You've done so much work in almost every area of the business, but you keep coming back to cabaret, and cabaret keeps welcoming you back. What is it about cabaret that pulls you in?
You know, it's a great question. I started my career in opera and found that wasn't quite the right fit for me, though I loved training for it and singing some of the music. But then I went into straight theater, and then when I moved to New York, I actually started my career in the Washington area with all these phenomenal theaters here. And then when I moved to New York, the concert doors opened, and I made my Carnegie Hall debut as a soloist in Ira Gershwin at 100 and the Centennial Tribute. And then I realized that I really loved concert work and I loved cabaret because I loved the removal of the fourth wall. I
Mhm.
had been acting in musicals and plays and theater and opera. And what I loved was singing directly into the eyes and hearts of the audience. And that intimacy really turned me on. I really loved it. So I made a career in singing with symphonies and cabaret and, you know, uh, all of the above. So continued also with theater and some opera, but
Well, it's interesting. I'm blind as a bat. I wear contact lenses, and when I first started in this business, growing up in South, I didn't get contact lenses until after I moved to New York, because my parents, very old-fashioned in South Carolina, thought they were a luxury. And I remember going in and getting my first pair of contact lenses, and I remember the doctor saying to me, it may be very frightening to you once you're able to see an audience walking on stage. But I always say, and Parker, pay attention, I always say that I'm a lighting designer's worst nightmare, because the lighting is not important to me. I
mm,
want to see the faces of every single person
yes,
in the audience. And I
yeah,
want to see the ones in the back row as well.
mm,
So there's nothing like it.
yeah, yeah. It's and then you really feel the power of the healing of music.
Mhm.
You know, people crying and so ecstatically happy and really thinking about what you're singing, and it's just this human interaction, this way of communicating artistically. It's just an extraordinary experience.
Do you remember the first time that you saw a cabaret show?
Um, Gosh, I mean, I made my debut at Danny's in
Mm.
2000, so it was probably around that time. Specifically, I'm not sure. No, I don't remember. That's a great question. I'll have to really think about that.
As you started pulling your first show, um, and everyone needs to know, it's not just about you or me or Lena or Ann Kittredge standing center stage and singing. It's a collaborative process, uh, pulling the right people in. Did you already have that team, or did the team start to come together as a result of your first cabaret show?
I met Alex Ryback
Mm.
on the great Alex Ryback on. I was doing theater guild tours, thanks to my mentor Leroy Reams.
Ah, who we love.
Still my heart. Yeah, so Leroy hired me to do 6 of those theater guild tours that were cruises that were so extraordinary. And Alex and Dennis Buck were the musical directors, and Alex and I, we decided to put together an act, very much like the show I'm going to be doing now. Actually, my original cabaret show, which was recorded as well with Alex and beautiful Jared Egan on bass. Souvenir was songs and stories of growing up in the Foreign Service. And that was my
Which,
first
believe it or not, I
show at
saw.
Danny's. Did you
I did
really?
see it, yes, at
Oh,
Danny's.
at Danny's, yeah.
Yes.
So that was the beginning. It was with Alex. So it was really Alex. It was actually Leroy. Now I'm remembering. Leroy said to me as I was singing and performing with all these illustrious stars on the Theater Guild cruises, he'd say, well, we're going to France. Can you sing anything in French? And I said, well, actually, yes, I do sing in French. Or we're going to Germany or whatever. Or Italy, we're going to be going to, an Italian place. And do you sing in those? And I'd say, well, actually, yes, I do. I sing in French and German and Italian. And so then it was Leroy who said, you need to do a club act with all these places that you've lived and tell the story and sing in these various styles of music in these various languages. So that's how Souvenir and the collaboration with Alex came to be. So you're reminding me now that it was really Leroy that started this whole thing.
No, well, Leroy, it's amazing. When I was performing as Carol Channing, I could not get Leroy to come see me
Oh,
for love or money
ah,
for years. And people would go to Leroy and say, you've got to see Richard Skipper do Carol. And he said, I've seen every drag queen from here to San Francisco and back. I'm not interested.
ah,
And we ended up in a showcase together at the York Theater. And I remember being on stage and seeing Leroy standing in the back, grinning from ear to ear. To me, that was the validation that
Oh,
I wanted and
absolutely.
needed. And then he came backstage and he said, "You son of a bitch, you're better than she is." And Leroy,
And he would know.
from
And
that
he would
moment
know.
on, we have been incredible friends. He was just here a few weeks ago. I did a concert for our church. My dear friend Peggy Eason, who passed away, we put together a memorial service, and Leroy came and performed as part of a church concert. He is just the best. There's no one better.
I love him madly, and he's just, yeah, he's the real deal, you know.
And
But
when you've got Leroy Reeves in your corner,
for him to compliment you, and you were an artist, so brilliant. You're not still doing Carol, but
no, those days are long.
Oh my gosh!
Well, this show is all about the people I've worked with, the people I've known, and the life lessons I've learned in this business. So, and it's all based on questions from the audience. So I have no idea what's going to happen until I get on the stage. I know what the songs are. I have the incredible Michael Mackesy, who is my musical director and co-star, because it's not just him sitting at the piano. There's a lot of interaction between the two of us. So I am so thrilled to be working with him. So I am going to bring on, I reached out to Ann Kittredge, and unfortunately she could not be here today, but she did send me a sizzle reel. So we get a chance for everyone to see a glimpse of what Ann will do. And I've seen this show, and I know that she's watching, she's on the road, but Ann, the show is brilliant and everyone's in for a real treat. And on top of that, she's also doing a master class. So here she is.
Lights, camera, Stepping out with my baby, can't go wrong 'cause I'm in right. It's for sure, not for maybe, that I'm all dressed up tonight. There'll be smooth sailing 'cause I'm trimming my sails in my top hat, white tie and tails. And when you get to India, my heart will still be India. Why'd you have to be so good? Life is bare, gloom and misery everywhere, stormy weather. Just can't get my poor self together. Another day has just begun. Good night, everybody.
I love her dearly. And she's become such a great friend. But I want to tell you, before I bring our next guest on, how it all began for me. I had done a lot of showcases in New York, acting, going from show to show to show to show, and making no money, like we make a lot of money in cabaret. But I went to a career coach, and she said, you should put your own show together. And I didn't know what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, or anything. But at that time, I was seeing a lot of shows, and I would check in to see who the director was for all those shows. And the name that kept coming up over and over and over again was Lena Katrakas. So I called Lena and I said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I want to do a show. And Lena, I'm going to pull her on while I tell her this story. And she said, that's a great place to start. And then I decided, crazy little Richard here, that I was going to do my own tribute to Judy Garland. I called Lena. Lena said, I don't know anything about Judy beyond The Wizard of Oz. But we went to her apartment and we went through all these clips and we came up with this idea of doing an imaginary taping of the Judy Garland show. And Lena was the absolute best person to get me started in this business. And she opened a lot of doors for me. But it wasn't with Judy that I had the success. It all happened with Carol. But Lena was there from the very beginning. And she was, and I'm going to say this, we know you as an incredible entertainer, Lena, but you are a brilliant director. And you are so nurturing and so caring that every single person in this business should go to you to direct them. And that's how I'm going to start with you today. Welcome to the show. You're muted.
I was going to say thank you and good night, Richard.
But forget about the directing. You are a brilliant entertainer, and you just knocked them dead at Birdland. Sold out.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, it was like Old Home Week. People were there that you haven't seen, from what I've been hearing, in years and years and years. People who were in the audience said, oh my God, I saw so-and-so again.
Right.
So that's a testament to you.
It was lovely. Listen, I haven't done a solo show in about 7 years. And for 20 years, I was doing my rock and roll band, simultaneously doing cabaret shows. And working a lot, directing, doing workshops, all that kind of great stuff. And then I thought, you know what? I was also with my singing group, Clearly Now, with Sean Harkness, and who you just saw in the Ann Kittredge clip, and Marcus Simeone, who sings, better than anybody in the world. Mm-hmm. If I didn't love him, I would hate him, of course. But and then I thought, it's time. It's time to do something. And I'd never done Birdland. I was a Birdland virgin. The Bottom Line, Rainbow and Stars, Joe's Pub, but never Birdland.
BB King's.
Right, BB King's, right? And I did Birdland, and I had a blast. Everything from the Great American Songbook, just with the trio, with Ted Firth at the piano. So, even if I was mediocre, that was going to be a brilliant show. And I got to sing some songs I wrote, and we got to wail and sing the rock blues too. I'm still flying from it. I don't know why I waited so long.
Well, you are a recent Sadie. You just recently got married.
I am, and I'd show you my ring, but I left it in the bedroom.
Well,
I am a Sadie, yes. Yeah.
So, Lena, what was it that wanted to, although you haven't done a solo show, as you just said, you are busier than anyone. What was it that brought you back to doing this? And how did you get on the radar of Parker?
I think that, look, I'm really lucky. Richard, I was cutting my directorial teeth with you on that brilliant Judy show. I gotta say, what a great idea you had. And we did a great job, and we were green, you and me.
I have to tell everybody, we were doing shows on Friday and Saturday night at midnight and tucking them in.
Listen, thank you, because now I am a really good director now. And it's because of my clients. And I work with such a high level of people that I kept watching the sound checks one day, and I thought, oh, what am I doing? I want to get up there and count the band off. It really just like a light bulb. And Jim Caruso truly whispered in my ear, say, why don't you do a show at Birdland? And like a bing, I thought, why, I never thought of that. And then I said yes.
And how did you start putting your team together? I mean, Ted Firth, phenomenal. And how did you get him? Talk about busy.
He's super busy. I started a recording workshop, and I have to say it's one of the most satisfying workshops I get to do, because I have made 8 albums in my life. And I learned as I went. It is the most expensive lessons I've ever learned. And nobody ever, from a singer's point of view, tells you how not to make all the mistakes I made. And I thought, I want to do this with Ted. So I said, whenever you have one day, let me know. And he gave me a day 3 months in advance. And now we're going on our 4th recording workshop. And I have 2 scheduled with Sean Harkness. And so he was there. And I said, listen, I'm sick of listening to you play for everybody else. All I want to do is sing with you. Do you have Monday of blah, blah, blah available? And he said, yes. Everybody said yes. So I thought, okay, I'm doing Birdland. So it was so much fun.
Now, before we went live, you told me, and I hope you don't mind my telling this, you just recently, you and I are both South Carolinians.
Yeah.
But you just went back. You have a house that you bought in South Carolina. What compelled you to get out of the house and go on the road again? Because, I mean, first of all, New York and now Washington, D.C. What is it that pulls you in that direction?
Beats me. I think it's part of the reason I teach is because I want to have this conversation with other people who do this, with you, with Anna, with Parker, with people who have gone before me, come before me. I don't know what it is. We are a very unique lot, where, look, I live in New York City, and Anna, I'm much like you. Your parents were foreign service. Mine was a Navy doctor.
Oh, yeah.
So I lived all over the place, different states, different countries. And South Carolina is one of them that called to me the loudest, the longest. So I run down here whenever I can now. And like you said, Alexandria, I lived in Quantico, Virginia for a while. So I was your neighbor, and I love it too. But I don't know, do we just want to be witnessed? Are we, people say something like, well, I don't want to have an ego. Well, if you don't have one, you're not going to get up on stage. You know what I mean? So I guess it's forever a fine balance, wanting to be witnessed, needing to say something to somebody that you wished somebody had said to you. Something like what you said, Richard, that you just want to share your life lessons. I do too. I wished I'd had 1,000 mentors. And so if I can be one, if I learn something with 8 albums, I want to tell it to you so you can do a brilliant first one, and I want to do that when I front a band or sing with a piano.
Well, you bring up an interesting point. Anna, mentioned Leroy Reams. Leroy Reams being a great mentor and saying, you should do this. You should go for it. Who was the person for you, Lena, who said, you should do this, you should go for it early on in your career?
My beautiful, once-in-a-lifetime soulmate forever, Mr. Dick Gallagher at the piano.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, just the best.
My first cabaret show you asked, I went to, I discovered Bette Midler and thought, oh, okay, what is that? Now that is a combination of everything I want to do, but for some reason I can hear every word she's saying. It was Janis Joplin and Bette Midler who had a heart connection, and I thought, I want to do that. I want to sing like that. I want to feel it. And then my first real cabaret show was this girl who had just gotten here from Chicago named Karen Mason.
Oh.
She had on a tangerine blouse and her hair was in a bun. I'll never let her forget.
I went to her first night at Don't Tell Mama.
I think I was the waitress there, but I saw her at the Duplex. And a few months after, she and Brian Lasser said, listen, we have a new friend of ours coming from Chicago and he wants to play for singers. You might like him.
He was the best.
He's my guy.
I have to tell you, one night, Dick Gallagher, I loved that man. I never saw him frown. I never saw him, ever heard him say a negative person about anyone else.
Never.
And I lived on 47th Street for a short while. And when I would walk in the door, he treated me like I was the most important person in the room. But it wasn't just me. He did that with everybody. And he would say, come on up and do a number. Come on up and do a number. So one night, I'm going to tell this story, and then I'm going to bring Parker on. One night, this is among the life lessons that you'll hear about. But one night, this woman comes up to me and she goes, oh my God, my son would love you. I've got to bring you home. I've got to introduce you to my son. My son would just go crazy over you. And I was in my 20s. I was young, and I think this woman is crazy. Who is this woman? She leaves. Dick Gallagher comes over to me and said, how do you know Edna? And I said, Edna who? And he said, that's Barry Manilow.
Barry's mother. Okay, can I tell
Edna Manilow and Natalie Schaefer were two of my biggest supporters and fans when I first started out, and they came to see everything I did.
Okay, can I tell you a really fast Edna Manilow story?
Yes, yes.
She did shows in the back room of Don't Tell Mamas, and I was the booking manager and the waitress. I loved Edna. She lived in my neighborhood. I adored her, but she would sing just like she would talk with a New York accent. And so she would sing Blackberry Winter, and I would hold up a piece of paper in the back of the room in the dark. Nobody could see. It would make me laugh. And at the end of the night, she called me, not Lena, Leaner. And she'd go, Lena, what are you holding up in the back of the room? And I was like, an R, Edna. I'm holding up an R. And she was, oh, you're funny.
I loved her. I loved her. I loved her. And I'll tell you somebody else that I loved. He's actually been on the show a few times. And I was lucky enough to help and do press for him when years ago with his show. Parker, thank you for opening the door for all three of us, and Anne and everybody else. Thank you for doing this series.
Oh, it is my pleasure and my passion to do this. I'm so excited. And everybody said yes.
Don't you know, in this business, don't be careful what you ask for. Carol Channing used to say, be careful what you wish for, because you will surely attain it.
Yeah.
And it's true.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's a power of attraction, right?
So, Parker, I know that you're originally from Indianapolis, and some of these things you and I have talked about before, but what is it about this genre that you are so attracted to?
That's a good question. Way back, a long time ago, when I was in high school, I had an amazing music teacher, Mrs. Geraldine Miller, and she wanted to expose her students who were in Indiana, in the Midwest, to a wide variety of musical experiences. And one of the things that we did in high school was a dessert cabaret. And this is like 1981, 80, 81. So it was a long time. And I'm like, well, what the heck is a cabaret? And
in
so
high school, you're saying that you did this.
Right.
Wow.
So she was really progressive for Indiana at the time. And, we transformed our cafeteria into a nightclub, right? And she had us audition for 4 acts in this. And I sang something from Chicago. I don't remember what it was. But it was really kind of cool because it wasn't like a concert performance. And it wasn't like, anything that I'd ever done before. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. It's sort of a neat thing. And then for a long time, I thought I wanted to be a singer and be a music teacher. You and I have talked about that before. And then in 1988, I was living in San Francisco and went to the Plush Room. And it was one of the most...
there, so...
Yeah.
Anna, did you ever perform at the Plush Room?
No.
Oh, beautiful room.
It was amazing. It had this beautiful stained glass kind of cove ceiling, and it was just really incredible. Now, this is really cool. That'd be something I'd really like to do, but I don't know. Maybe I won't ever do it. So I was still singing classically and singing in chorales. I've lost track of this question. Doggone it.
Yeah, I asked what it was that pulled you into this genre.
Yeah, well, actually,
Parker needs a director.
Because I got a travel show myself coming up about being a flight attendant. So there you go. It's a whole different experience to share music. And Anna was talking about the healing power of music and that connection you have with the audience, and that really draws me to this genre, right? Because it's not chorale, it's not major solo performances in a large concert hall. It's a very intimate experience that you share with somebody in a room. And I think, Lena, did I hear it from you that when you do it, every molecule in the room vibrates? And yeah,
I stole it.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm stealing it from you, so there we go. But
Send it on.
Pass it on.
There's just something magical about this kind of experience, right? For me as a performer, it's terrifying because it's just me and the people 6 feet away from me, right?
Well, San Francisco, when I was performing out there, they had a very vibrant cabaret community.
Mhm.
It's not as vibrant now as it was then, and that has nothing to do with the talent that's there. That has to do with economics. That
Right,
so many
right.
of these venues that I played in, the Plush Room being one of them, closed. And then when I
Mhm.
was performing as Carol, one of my favorite cities to perform in, and so I cannot wait, is Washington, D.C. And the Signature Theater had a cabaret series at one time, and
Mhm.
which I was a part of, and there were so many rooms. And this time last year, I had several members of the DC cabaret scene on the show. And thank God all of you keep this going. And I do want to say this, one of the things, as much as we all love Anna, Lena, and I, we have our awards that we've won over the years, but the DC cabaret scene is not really based on awards and competition and everything. It just seems to be this outpouring of people who just want to get up and sing.
For the most part, you're right. I mean, I think one of the things that we have done, that Capital Cabaret is doing, we want to create an inclusive environment where singers can come and learn from other singers and build a community with each other. One of the things that we're excited about in this cabaret series in March is a DC showcase that's hosted by Susan Derry. And it's going to be providing a venue for 4 or 5 curated performers, up and coming performers, to actually hone their craft and do something they haven't done before. And that's going to be an amazing experience to be able to provide that opportunity and sort of help build that community organically. One of the things that I loved about San Francisco was everybody believed the pie was big enough, right? Everybody believed that there was enough for everybody. And I can support you, I can encourage you. And I've been places since then that it hasn't been that way. But here in DC, it's a whole different kind of vibe, right? I mean, and we have an opportunity, at least I'm hoping we have an opportunity, to really kind of fill that void of education and support for the young people who want to start learning how to do this. Because I tell you, once you've done it, and once you know the magic that happens in that kind of environment, it's really amazing.
I'd like to say something there, Parker. That's such a great insight into this community because I always told young people when I started my career in the Washington area, it was such a phenomenal place to get your equity card after a SAG card. There are so many opportunities, so many phenomenal theaters here where you can really build your resume and do some incredible theater and musicals and all of that. And what's interesting to me is that you are creating this opportunity now for those singers and actors that live and work in this area to explore cabaret. And ironically, but in such a fantastic sort of way, I was doing a show last September in Washington, D.C., and a woman came up to me and said, with brilliant Howard Breitbart at the piano, "Do you guys teach? Because this just was phenomenal." And I said, "Yes, I do." And so she has hired me now to join the faculty of Levine Music School.
Wow.
The reason I'm saying this is, what did she want me to do? She wanted me to teach musical theater, aspiring musical theater students how to sing that repertoire in concert. So that is cabaret, which is fantastic. So I think we are going to be creating a huge amount of artists here that want to perform this in this art form.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. And one of the ways, the mechanisms that we do this with Capital Cabaret is we have a monthly open mic at Crazy Aunt Helen's called Curtain Call. And Howard, of course, is the musical director and the accompanist for those evenings. And if you, Richard and Lena, if you haven't heard Howard, you're in for a treat. He is
I'm
just
excited.
amazing.
Is he playing for you, Lena?
Yeah, he's not playing my show. He's playing when I am teaching.
Oh,
and
fantastic.
I'm bringing John Weber down from New York to
Oh, wow.
play, because this will be our second Crazy Ann Helens, and we're on a roll. So,
Okay.
you know what, Parker?
So, Lena, you played Crazy Ann Helens.
Yes, I've taught in DC a handful of times, and I went down through a friend of mine, a magnificent singer named Justin Ritchie, who's also a Navy brat.
Yeah.
And when I was a girl, he was being born, both of us in Naples, Italy at the same time, but we didn't know each other. Justin ended up having Rick Jensen and I come down because we taught together a lot. And we did a concert that night. And there was a guy named Shane there who didn't own a place called Crazy Ann Helens at the time. But he said he kept me in his head and said that if he ever opened a club, he wanted to ask me first. And he did ask.
Wow.
He found me. I never met him. He was in the audience. And so the power of music, and what do they say? If you touch one person, and you never really know, but when Shane introduced himself, I got to know that person. And I thought that was a beautiful story. So I'm going back down. But you know what, Parker? I want to tell you that traveling around teaching has, I did this thing before the pandemic called A Taste Of. And we were doing exchange shows. We had a Taste of New York, 4 singers, go to St. Louis. We had 4 singers from St. Louis. I put together these shows and brought them to New York. They got great reviews. We were on our way to do it with Chicago, and we got shut down. So Becky Menzie and I from Chicago are picking it up again. And when I went down the last time to teach and sing at Crazy Ann Helens, we have added DC to our exchange student program. So I'm all about our communities really holding hands. So now it's a Taste of DC in Chicago and New York, and I'm going to get that together and talk to you about it.
Wonderful.
All right,
That's
fabulous.
amazing. Next Wednesday is the anniversary of the passing of Laurie Beachman. And so it was just brought, there's a documentary that was done about for Laurie 22 years ago. Wow. And it just got released to YouTube. It's Laurie Beachman, Listen to Her Heart. It's only 58 minutes. Everybody go and see this film. When she was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, she was given 2 years to live. She ended up living 9 years beyond that. But her biggest fear, number one, would be that people would not book her because of her illness. And Richard J. Alexander, David Friedman, a lot of people, they got her on stage and she was performing and doing better than ever. And someone asked her, what gets you going? I mean, you go out there and you give your all when you're on that stage. And she said, there are people in that audience. She talked about doing Cats. She did Grisabella longer and more than any other actress while she was battling cancer. And Grisabella, if you know the story, is about this dying cat. And she would go out there and she would give and give and give. And she says, there's someone in that audience tonight who has never had the experience of seeing this show. And so it is such an honor for all of us. And I know that Anna and Lena and you too agree with me to have the luxury of stepping out on stage in front of an audience, and especially people who have never experienced you before. There's nothing like it.
But you also, I think Anna said it, you can see them. You said it, Richard, too, that you want the lights on in the back. The relationship I get from them in their silence, just, it never, ever gets, no, it's not that it doesn't get old. It never ceases to thrill me. It's like, oh my God, one person, a collective audience. It changes all the time. I did this. I used to play in the comedy clubs before I found the cabaret rooms, and we were what was called the relief singers. So the headlining singer before me was Laurie Beachman, this woman named Laurie Beachman, who went out to get Pippin, and then the coveted spot became available, and I really wanted it. I got it the second time around. The first time around, a chick named Pat Benatar got it. I have been floating around excellent company my whole life.
I opened for Pat Benatar, believe it or not, at Gay Pride Milwaukee. Milwaukee Festival.
Wow.
And talk about, I mean, me as Carol Channing on stage opening for Pat Benatar. But that audience was it was so incredible.
Oh, I love that.
Yes, and I'll share this story which I'm telling again next week. But I went to see Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat before it moved to Broadway.
That's what I meant, not Pippin. She did Joseph, right? I could see the coat. Sorry.
And a friend of mine took her, and I walked out on. I was sitting on the edge of my seat the moment she hit the stage, and I was in love with her.
Yeah.
So this friend of mine writes to her, tells her that I'm just fresh off the farm in South Carolina. I've come to New York to be an actor. And Laurie Beachman sends me the nicest letter, wishing me a successful career. And she sent an autographed picture. And I carry that photograph around, and it's set on my dressing room table. And then I'm doing a show at the Carter Theater. You know that there was a theater, the Carter Hotel had a theater, and someone ransacked the dressing room one night, and they ripped up the photograph, and they ripped it into little pieces. I called my friend Teresa, who had written to Laurie Beachman, and I told her what had happened. She wrote to Laurie Beachman again, and Laurie Beachman sent me another photograph, and on the back she had a taped key, and she said, "Lock this up." She was just so generous. And I have found, and I'm sure that all of you will agree with me when I say this, it's been my experience in this business that the bigger they are, the nicer they are, and they just want to open doors for you.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's so true. It's such a loving, supportive community. And I think it's because we produce ourselves.
That's good.
And we need one another to help us build our audiences. And so I just love, I'm so excited I'm coming. I'm not sure I can come to your, Richard. I love your show, but it's because it's the night before, and I'm I'm always just kind of like quiet and focused. And but I'm coming to Lena's, and I'm coming to Anne's, and I'll come see you again. I love your shows.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
But I just love supporting each other. You know, I just, it means so much. And I'm thinking of Andrea Marcovici, who's another one that's been such a blessed mentor in my life. I mean, so generous, directing me, producing me on recordings,
and Kittredge as well.
So many shows. Yeah.
And Kittredge reminds me a little of Andrea. When I was watching the clip, I thought, ooh, there's that elegance, but completely right out there for you at the same time.
Yeah.
One of my mentors, I mean, I got to, Julie Wilson has said brilliant things to me, but this woman, I don't even know if she's a mentor or my big sister or whatever, but she loves me, and it makes me feel like a junior high school girl who got a senior in high school to be her best friend, Amanda McBrew. I love her
my God.
so much.
Oh, I love her too.
And when she's like, well, honey, I love you, I'm like, to McBrew.
Love you. She's so fun.
I love her. And I'm in South Carolina and cannot go see her in Ann Hampton Callaway at 54 Below. And that pisses me off.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to say piss me off?
Yes, yes, you are. You can say anything you want on this show.
I love them both so much.
Parker, one of the biggest issues that a lot of artists have nowadays is, I mean, Anna and Lena and I are, if you'll forgive me, ladies, for saying this, are of a certain age. And we were in New York City at a time when there was not social media, and people got out of their houses to go see shows. And it was incredible. Like I said, when I opened midnight shows. People were there. You walked out, and 46th Street was like and especially Grove Street. Both of those streets were like block parties. You saw everybody that you knew. It was this feeling of support. Everybody was there. What I loved about Don't Tell Mama, with all due respect to everyone now, was that at that time, when it was just one piano cabaret room, you could go, and I remember one night, Lena, being there, sitting with Dick Gallagher, and they came in and they said, Lena Katrakas is going on in 15 minutes. If you want to see the show, let your waitron, remember that? No. And one of your drinks can go towards your 2-drink minimum. And there was an encouragement to get people out of the piano bar into the cabaret rooms. Because Irv Rabel, God bless him, and Sydney early on, the goal was not the piano bar, it was the cabaret room. And it was getting people into those rooms. And now, Annie Hughes, who is a dear friend, a few years ago, she comes to New York and she says, let's go to Don't Tell Mama. I said, Annie, it's not the same vibe. And we went, she said, I was just going to stand at the bar. They said, you can't stand at the bar. You have to be seated. And at the tables, it's a 2-drink minimum in the piano bar. And so they are not encouraging people to go see the shows. And 90% of the people that are sitting in the piano bar area have no idea there's a show even going on in the back room.
I've often thought about it. I wonder what it is. And I think it's obviously a collection of things. But the idea that there were club owners like Irv Rabel, who owned Brandy's Piano Bar, 88's, Don't Tell Mamas, and the Duplex, all of those. And even Alan Pepper, the owner of the Bottom Line, who Irv learned how to do his business from. These guys, they were not wealthy, so I don't really know how they did it, but their bottom line was not the money. That's almost not available anywhere. And I don't even know how they did that, number one. And number two, it was before AIDS. So we were all out all the time, late at night. And then I was a lot younger, and so was my audience. But I don't see young people going out for live music either, the way we did. As the waitress, I worked midnight shows on Saturday nights, 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock, midnight. Richard, Sharon McKnight, Jennifer Lewis, Karen Mason, Nancy Lamont. And it was different time.
And Jennifer Lewis, who is still a very dear friend of mine, and you remember this, Lena, she would walk in and she'd say, everybody, I got a show going on. Meet me in the back room. And she would hand out cards to everybody in the room. And, and I'll tell you somebody else who did the same thing, Billy Porter.
That's right. He did. And look at the two of them. They are both, movie stars. Now, I do have to say, I used to say to Jennifer Lewis all the time, I wish you'd get famous because you are the only person I can imitate. And now she's famous. And I thought, well, wow, I didn't know it was that easy. And she used to call me Diva Katrakas. Diva Katrakas. What do you want to say?
I
Diva
love
Katrakas?
her.
Me too.
I was lucky enough to go to the opening night of Hello Dolly with Bette Midler. And I am sitting, and every person you can name was in that audience.
Wow.
And Jennifer Lewis walks in, and because, she was one of the Harlettes. I mean, her and Bette started out together.
Right. I forgot that one.
She sees me. I'm sitting in the front row, and she screams, oh my God, that Skipper guy is here. And who is that? Oh my God. Those days were so incredible. Parker, what is your main method now of trying to get an audience in Washington, D.C., not only for this series, but for everything?
Doing a show every 7 years works, Parker.
I'm learning that. That's a really good question, Richard. And I think I'm going to say for Capital Cabaret and for the other things, we have been incredibly fortunate to have a partner in crime in the owner of Crazy Aunt Helen's. he has a very strong commitment to live theater and a very strong commitment to getting people out of their seats and out of their houses into the community again. And his name is Shane Mason. Love him to death. And I'm going to tell you, what he's doing is working. I mean, if you look at Crazy Aunt Helen's events page, they're booked. I mean, and people are there. I mean, and it's a nice variety and it's a nice mix of stuff. It's not just cabaret shows. It's not just drag shows. I mean, it's just an incredibly supportive and encouraging owner of a venue, much like you were talking about Irv, right?
He is the person who came and saw me, kept me in his head, and when he opened Crazy Aunt Helen's, called me. And I did not know him. He is one of those club owners who, God bless him, is leading with his heart, and the money is following. If that makes sense. Yeah.
And I will tell you, we would not be able to do this without his support and without his encouragement. And his support, I think, is just indescribable in terms of
I agree.
In my way, I'd love to have him come on the show.
Oh, yes, you should have him. He's a very special man.
Yeah, I did call him and ask him if he would be here, but he had a commitment tonight, so he wasn't able to. But I will definitely. And Lena, you can put some pressure on him too.
I will.
Parker, I want to ask you because, and if I'm speaking out of line, please forgive me, but I'm just going to put it out there. I think you mentioned to me early on that some of the local talent are going to be opening for each of us each night. Is that still in place?
No, unfortunately, it's not. I know. It was the logistics of things kind of percolating until the last minute. It was very hard to nail down who was going to do what, when, where, and getting things coordinated. But that doesn't mean it's not going to happen next year, because this goes back to that.
It's a brilliant idea.
You better bring me back then. I can't wait to see who's going to open for me. There's so many DC singers I love.
Well, I will tell you this, because I am very, very fortunate. I'm going to bring up the postcard because I am so excited. And I love this photo. In the current issue of Cabaret Scenes magazine, there's a feature article on Michael Mackesy. And Michael Mackesy has truly paid, if he's watching, he's truly paid his dues in this business. He's been around a long time. He is so much fun. He has done so many things. And my original choice for the show was not able to do the show. And someone said, and this solidified it for me, you need a Barry Manilow for your Bette Midler. And that is Michael Mackesy. And so Michael said, I got the perfect picture. I'm going to bring it up. Here we are. This is, I am doing the show the week before at Roost, which is here in Spark Hill, where I live in Rockland County. And one of the things that Michael is doing, and I'm just going to put it up, I'm putting you on the spot, Barker, but because he is a piano bar player, before I come out, he's doing 15 minutes with the audience. So if you want him to do that, he will get that audience in the mood for the evening. And which I think is a wonderful idea.
Absolutely. Well, we'll talk more about that. We'll have an offline conversation about that. But I think one of the things that we wanted to do is really bring in the local talent too, like I was talking about, because that's really one of the core missions of our organization, is really fostering local talent and really giving them an opportunity to grow. And this is another chat altogether, but that will probably happen next year when we have more lead time to get things moving and more consistency with scheduling.
Well, listen, Parker, I mean, I do a lot of these planning my workshops in different parts of the universe and things like that. And I have to applaud you. I think it's beautiful what you're doing. I also am getting to know you, so I know where you're coming from with it. Much like Shane Mason, it's a great place. I really love it. And I think the idea of you doing it the way you are this year, we are a little bit more established at present, so you're kind of introducing it with a bang. And I think that that's perfect for this year.
Mm.
You know, I really, really do. I'm glad to be part of it, but I'm also watching you from afar and thinking, attaboy, it's a beautiful contribution.
It is.
And you're doing it well. Yeah.
Well, speaking of beautiful contributions, all of you have given so much joy to me. I have been very fortunate. I love, love, love. Anyone who knows me knows this about me. I love being on stage. I also love being in the audience.
Yeah.
You know, when you are in a group of people, and I have been fortunate enough to be in the audience for all of you. So I'm the lucky one. We are at the end of our show. I'm going to do my closing comments. Then I'm going to turn it over to you, Anna, Lena, and Parker. I'd like you to have the final word about tonight. For all of you, it could be about anything that we talked about that you want to build upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any final message you want to leave everyone with tonight. Those of you who watched the show, and I thank so many of you, I'm looking right now on the screen. I see Pam and Natasha and Sherry. You show up every day for me. So thank you for being here. We love what we do. And we would do it in the comfort of our own living rooms. I know all of us would. But there's nothing like having that audience out there. So if you're not in Washington, D.C., tell at least 5 or 6 people that you do know who are in Washington, D.C. Not only about the 3 of us and Ann Kittredge, but all the shows that are going to be there for the entire week. And you can get a package deal as well, which I think is a wonderful thing to be able to go and see all of these shows. I am so excited because, as I said earlier, it's been 4 years since I've had the chance to do any of this. And when Parker reached out to me and asked me if I would be there, it was easy to say yes. I didn't even give it a second thought. So thank you, Parker, for opening this door for me again. It means the world to me. I end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Pick up the phone and call someone that you have not spoken to in a long time. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, a phone call. And let that person know how they've made a difference in your life. It's very important that we do these things now instead of posting it all over social media after they've left and we don't know if we can see it or not. So do it. It's important that we do that. Sean Moniger, who, when I was doing my show at Don't Tell Mama, he was the lighting designer. Him and Bobby Nealon both did sound and lights for me when I was starting out with the first show with Lena. And Sean Moniger once says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. And then someone else said to me, we're all in the same storm, but we're in different size boats. And I don't care if you are in a canoe or a raft or a sailboat, or if you're pushing a tugboat upstream like Barbra Streisand, whatever it is that you're on that size boat, make sure that you have a skipper by your side. And on that note, I'm going to leave. And Anna, I'm going to turn it over to you. I love you all so much. Thank you all for being here today. Anna, it's yours. Thank you.
Just want to say, Richard, to me, you're like the epitome of cabaret, because Richard is the most loving, nurturing, and inspiring person. And he so supports us all as artists. And so I want to just say that I'm really excited for this Capital Cabaret. And thank you, Parker, for making this happen, because I think this is, as Lena has said, this is the beginning of something really magical and phenomenal in the Washington. I want to also add Washington, Maryland, and DC. We're known as the DMV. We're all 3 states. And right. And so I just want to say that I'm just so excited that we're going to be giving to our audiences in Washington, Maryland, and Virginia all this love and inspiration and joy with this live music and these live performances. So thank you. I'm so excited to be part of it and to support my fellow artists.
We're glad to gonna do it. Thank you, Anna.
We're on our own here. Here we go. I just want to say that, like I said earlier, I love having this kind of conversation, talking about what we're lucky enough to do. So thank you to Richard. And old and new friends on this evening, and I look forward to being with all of you live and in person, doing what we love at the First Capital Cabaret in DC at the very end of March. I will be there with bells on. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Parker.
Thanks, Lena. March 18th through the 25th. Mark your calendars. It's going to be a great, great week. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Lena. And thank you, everyone who is supporting this. And I'm very grateful for you all. That's it.